Hello, everyone. It's Jerry at the Fledge. Welcome to another episode of Every Damn Day. So today we're going to jump right into a couple things. I'm Jerry. I got brown hair. I got brown eyes. I still got my wound on my forehead from when I leaned into something wrong the other day. I'm wearing a headset. I've got No Rules from Dustin. I think he designs most of the shirts I wear, actually. But shout out to Values Not Rules at the Fledge. And today on the show, we've got our good friend Kelsey. How's it going, Kelsey?
It's going good. Going good.
What you been up to today?
Wow, today I have been doing lots of reading this morning and drinking some tea.
Nice.
Yeah, it's nice outside, so I sat on my back porch.
Yeah, it's such a great day. We put a hoop house up this weekend, and I can't stop working out there. I don't know. I love the sunshine.
Mm-hmm.
So, real quick, I added to my him Moderna, and I got my vaccine this morning, and I've really, I've been nervous about it. I've been cautious about it. I'm scared of it and all these things. But I'm healthy and I'm not allergic to anything. And I, deal with a lot of people day to day. I might have my mask on, but it's still a lot of people coming for food, coming for clothes, coming for whatever. So I took the risk, whatever risk that it might be. And so I think as we move into the future, we're all going to be asking each other about the vaccine. Did you get it? Yes or no? And if you did, which one did you get? Pfizer? Did you get Moderna? Did you get Johnson & Johnson? Whatever. And I think it's going to be a thing. So I want to put that out there. I got my vaccine. I think it's good for me, and I think it's good for my crowd. I don't know how to encourage people, though, because if you're allergic to eggs, maybe it's not good for you. If you're have other allergens, they try to be safe, but I'm sure people are scared. What do you think about that, Kelsey?
Yeah, so I'm so glad we're talking about this. This is such an incredibly nuanced topic, and some people are absolutely against it. Some people are for it. Some people don't know how they feel about it and don't know where to start with research. So I think it's really, really good to talk about it. I am someone who has some pretty severe comorbid, multiple autoimmune issues going on. And so I have the privilege of having healthcare and healthcare access, which I'm very thankful for. And so I have spoken with all of my specialists and checked with my allergists I get weekly allergy shots. So I'm very familiar with the office, but I feel confident in getting the vaccine when I'm going to.
Okay.
So yeah.
Do you have any advice or thoughts for people that are thinking it through? They don't know what to do, or even if they're on one side or the other?
Yeah, so I would say if you are not sure about it, or if you're kind of I don't know if it's worth the risk, or maybe I know a couple people who are I want to wait it out until people start showing side effects or whatnot, especially in the disability community. Some people are waiting for able-bodied people to have reactions to see if it's going to be a good idea for them or not. I would say, first of all, talk about it. Talk with your support network, people who have your back. Also, if you have access to talking with your primary care provider or PCP, anyone who has you trust their knowledge on this issue, whether that be the CDC website, the health department website. I'm such a firm believer that knowledge is power. So if you're intimidated by this subject, I would encourage you to take that power back and to do your own research. And then the last thing I would say about research is there's a huge understandable hesitancy in some of the black community because of the history of experimentation and abuse on Black folks from the medical community. So that's like I said, it's understandable. There is a very good resource on the America 20 to Life Facebook page. They did a community forum with Black members of the Black health system in Lansing to talk about those concerns. And so that's a really good resource in that particular area because that is an understandable hesitancy in my mind.
So shout out to Erica and Michael for doing that. That is actually a great resource.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're good friends of mine. So.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're doing really good work in the area. I mean, like I said, I believe that knowledge is power, and I've learned so much about Lansing politics from that show. And I mean, I'm like a regular like public commenter on city council calls now. A bunch of us can give a group chat and stuff, and so now I like know the landscape. It's so powerful to like know your local landscape. Yes.
Mm-hmm. That's where all the relevant change is really going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I just love those guys. I adore them.
Yeah.
So,
the feeling is mutual. So,
let's get into you a little bit. Tell us about you. Where were you born and raised? Where'd you go to school? What you been doing?
So I was born at Sparrow Hospital, which is really close to where you are right now. Yeah, I was born at Sparrow in 1990, so I'm a 90s kid through and through. And yeah, I grew up in Holt. We moved to Grand Ledge when I was in high school. And now I live in Lansing proper. But yeah, I would say as far as like growing up, I grew up in the area, definitely grew up in a very Midwest culture. Yeah, I grew up with a lot of really firm beliefs about, I grew up evangelical. So very sheltered, very, kind of in my own bubble, but I learned a lot about justice and a lot about the story of the gospel. And I feel like that, even though I have pivoted in so many ways about my beliefs about faith and justice and such, that to me is a core of who I am, even if it's coming from motivation that some people may see as very like anti-Christian,
Yeah.
So, but yeah, being justice and our words are power and knowledge is like a huge part of who I am. My therapist, she calls me, and I shout out to therapy. It's great.
Yes.
But my therapist calls me a wisdom gatherer. So.
That's nice. That's nice. So, if you don't mind, let's spend a little more time on that because, we haven't talked about religion very much. I think most people know that I'm an atheist. I, don't necessarily, well, I guess sometimes I even get triggered by it. I get triggered by the word pray. I get triggered by, God bless you, which people say to me. I'm standing outside of a church most of the time. So It's kind of hard for people to not know that about me. But I'm also not necessarily anti-religious. There's a lot of comfort that it can bring to people and a lot of, I don't want to say the other word I wanted to say. We're going to save that word for later. But what do you mean by what you were, kind of the, I don't know, you said anti or tell us more about that. I'll let you talk.
Yeah, absolutely. So I also want to say that triggering and trauma is valid, and I'm centering that in this conversation. So I think some people, when they hear that like church trauma or like being triggered is something that like you should just whatever, like, get over it. But I think that like that trauma is like valid and like it should be, something we talk about or something that, that you feel safe with.
Yeah. We've recently had some therapy Thursdays. We all get together and just talk about stuff, and we've been talking about triggers lately. And the worst thing you can say is just get over it.
Oh yeah.
So thank you for saying that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up evangelical. I grew up going to a mega church that's in the area that I'm going to leave anonymous. And um, I think that there are some such beautiful things about Jesus in the story about Jesus, about how he was hanging out with prostitutes and tax collectors, and he was hanging out on the margins of what the gosh, I could talk about this for hours. I'm trying to figure out what I want to say. But he hung out with the people that were being looked down on and ostracized, and the current religious institution at the time, that's who really was this harsh criticism, and people who ultimately that's who crucified him. And so I think in terms of what religion means to me, it means being with people who the church has left out, who is whether that's queer people, trans people, people of color, people with disabilities to a certain extent, people who have different beliefs about things. And so part of being a progressive Christian means that you are embracing the story of the reality of the gospel while letting go of conservative politics, purity culture, patriarchy, homophobia, transphobia, racism. I did like to say that all the isms and obias, you're letting go of that. And just getting down to the pure, what does it look like to be like Christ in a society where Trumpism just rampantly, took over the church? And what does it look like to radically love people in a way that is actual love? You know what I mean?
Yes.
Not that I'm questioning if people love people. That's not at all what I'm doing. And I'm also don't want to come across as you should stop believing. That's not at all what I'm saying. I'm actually saying for me, there's goodness to be held, because the level of anger and frustration you can have about something is also the level of love that you have for that thing. They're actually coming from the same place and equal, because I'm not going to be mad about something I don't care about,
Yeah.
So
there's so many organizations that on the outside are doing so much good, right?
Mm-hmm.
And let's just take a mission, for example. I'm trying to be generic.
Mm-hmm.
And you come in and you want a meal and you want a place to stay, but they're going to preach at you and they're going to pray over you and they're going to do all of these things where they're trying to fix you. And that doesn't excite me very much. It actually, the back 40 over here, most of them don't want to go to a shelter, not necessarily, some of them because of the religious part, some of them because it's just too dangerous. It's better to be out in that field with a tent than it is to be in there and get beat up, get molested, get harassed, get your stuff stolen. What runs through your mind? Because you got a lot to say as a poet, you got a lot to express as an artist, and you got a lot to change as an activist, right? I mean, those are your three things.
Yeah.
That
kind of I think, gosh, all of that, and I've known about the back 40 for a while. I know that's something that I was trying to signal boost when everything was happening, because it sucks that people have to compromise their beliefs to get a bed and then be able to be safe. I mean, there's amazing things that homeless organization or homeless shelters do, and there's amazing ministries in the area. I know Loaves and Fishes is a place I've heard is amazing things, and
love them. Loaves and Fishes.
And also the gospel and Jesus, the way that he lived his life was incredibly accommodating to people who are on the outside and the margins of things. To say that you can only stay here if we push our agenda down your throat is actually very antithetical and anti what the Bible is about. You know what I mean? Like, and so I think on the opposite end of that, like, okay, like if I'm gonna use my voice for good, like what am I gonna talk about? Like what am I gonna say? You know? And I in my poetry I write a lot about, I have different like biblical references. Like one of the lines I have is like, remember where you were when you saw your Ebenezer, or like I talk about like the River Jordan, or there's different biblical references that I use, excuse me, in my poetry. And it's because that's a language that I know. And also because like I think that, and this is somewhat controversial, but it's that's what we're here.
Yes.
I saw this post recently that it made me so excited. So basically what it said is a Facebook post, and it said that people who are currently questioning and deconstructing and trying to figure out what they believe and how they want to bring goodness in the world, that's actually the revival that we've been praying for years to come back. And I see this movement of like holding people's multiple beliefs and also like loving people and like bringing this gospel back that doesn't have to have all these constructs, doesn't have to have all these beliefs, but it's like pure love, you know, that like anyone who even doesn't believe in God can attach to. And I think that movement is going to, like, the other thing too is like the plague came, or the Renaissance came after the plague. Like I see a movement that's coming of people who have hope and have joy, but it doesn't necessarily have to have all these tags attached to it, you know?
Yeah. I think, yeah. So, you know, I see the Roaring 20s coming. I see the Renaissance coming. It's all coming together.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so optimistic about, I don't know, our future.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's very exciting.
Yeah.
So, you know, I ask people kind of tell us about your projects, and you put poet, you put artist, and you put activist.
Mm-hmm.
And you also talked a little bit about in the prep, and then when you register for the show, about someone being having disability. Take us somewhere, wherever you want to go, of those things or anything else. What do you want to talk about? What do you want to tell us about what you're up to?
Yeah, so I would say lately what I'm up to is I'm writing a ton. I've been thankfully right now I have the privilege of having stable housing and not having to work. And so lately, like my full-time job has been like absorbing and reading about different social justice issues, and then also trying to figure out, okay, I believe in these things. Where do I want to point my direction? Like, where do I want to focus my energy? You know? And so I what I write about and what I've been writing lots of poems, and I'm hoping to publish at some point. I don't think we're quite there yet, you know?
Yeah.
But when I write, it's like, I believe that when I write, it's, do you ever have one of those moments where you have to like, something comes to you and you're like, oh my gosh, I forgot about that. And you have to write it down.
Yeah.
For me, when I write poetry, it just comes to me and I have to grab a pen and paper. I have to grab my phone. And it's just like energy that comes out of me. And I also believe that it's not just for me. Like, I think the poems I'm writing about are like, are for other people as well. It's like a story that's like meant to be told, but just like through me as a vessel, you know? So lots and lots of writing. And then also in terms of activism, I recently joined the Democratic Socialists of Lansing, or DSA. And we have some, I would say, exciting projects coming up. And then also, I also joined the Lansing chapter of the NAACP.
All right.
The committee that I'm on, that I'm super excited about, that I can't talk about, but hopefully that I can get posted on my page. So
we gotta watch America 20 to Life to see what you're up to.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like America is. It's funny because Erica and I are super tight, and on my phone she's Erica America, so that I just shook about that. But yeah, they have some great initiatives coming up in terms of, I know on Saturday, I believe Saturday or Sunday, Yeah, that would have been Saturday. They had a vaccine clinic.
Yeah,
And that's
I
just
saw that.
super amazing. Yeah. And I'm also optimistic about when I get my vaccine of what, once it's safer to be in the world, what that looks like. I will say, as someone with this disability, with chronic illness, I'm a little bit, I have a bit of cautious optimism in that area because when COVID hit in March, like a year ago, everything started, the accommodations that disabled folks have needed for years all of a sudden became possible, like work at home, curbside pickup, different things like that, where it became accessible. And a lot
Yes.
of us in the disability community are concerned that once things come to a level of accessibility for the average person, that those accommodations might start going away, and then bring us back to where we were. And so I want to be part of that change. Like, I want to be part of the change that like keeps us accessible and is thinking about innovation and what that looks like. And so that's something also that I'm trying to focus my energy on, is like, okay, how do we make like the artist community or the poet, like how do we keep these things as accessible as possible? Because I believe that true innovation is going to come from creatives, like the Fledge, like an incubator type program where it's like, okay, what are we going to do? Great, here's the resources. This is how we're going to do that.
Yeah.
From point A to point B is like not easy, but if you have a support system like the Fledge, or like a local nonprofit like America, or gosh, there's like so many things, that like the women's center, and also the Stella Center too. Like how do we help you get to where you need to be? Because when you start creating things and when you start innovating, it elevates everyone.
Yeah. I said early on in last March, I ain't going back. I'm never going back to how it was when this started. And I think, even virtual events, they need to continue.
Absolutely.
Even if they're live, they need to continue so we can reach people that can't necessarily come here. I mean, I love what you're saying, but even from the food delivery and how we do distro and all these different things, like you were part of Llama when they started up for a while, and I think they did fantastic work. What do you think?
Yeah, so Llama, or Lansing Area Mutual Aid.
Yeah, thank you.
It's okay.
It's usually me doing that correction.
Yeah, so Llama is something that I am so proud that I was a part of. One of my best friends, like I met through Llama and also through DSA. I have a lot of connections there and stuff. But yeah, we basically built that thing from like the ground up in a very short amount of time. And I believe the work we did was really good. Basically, what we did, for those of you who aren't familiar, is we took a Google Doc, a form, and said, okay, what do you need? And then the other form was, okay, what can you provide? And we played matchmaker, basically, which was amazing. And also it taught me a lot about, okay, what can I commit to? So that organization was like my very first community organizing thing ever. Like it was the very first thing that I was like, cool, I'm down. I had the ability because I wasn't working. And I learned so much about like taking minutes and what ranked choice voting is and like how to do XYZ. And, the biggest thing I learned from that is what can I commit to? What can I commit to? And how to recognize that because honestly, like I burnt out. A lot of us did. But I'm still really proud of the work that I did. And learning those lessons has made me, I think, a more effective activist and a more effective, like, okay, I can commit to this and I can do it, and delivering, but the work we did was incredible. I mean, at a certain point, I don't actually know like the levels of distributions or how much we actually gave, but it was like a ton for the little amount of people that we had. The amount of actual like donations and such was like incredible and like inspiring. Like I felt like, man, I'm part of something that's like literally historical,
Well, I think, you guys working with Llama at the Fledge made us step up our game in a lot of ways. We need to, we didn't know what was happening with surfaces and what we had to clean and what we didn't have to clean and aerosols and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it made us very good at distributing food.
Mm-hmm.
And that legacy will never go away. I mean, it was a big part of it. It was a big part of it.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we were so happy to like partner with the Pledge because you guys helped us so much with like the food distros distribution and like getting a fridge down there and just different, things that we collaborated with. A lot of us were complete strangers. Actually, all of our organizing meetings were like over Zoom, and a lot of those people I've never actually met in person, but we had like amazing experiences together,
Yeah. So I think our future is so much stronger because of all that work that everyone was doing in the beginning there.
Mm-hmm.
So, how do you want to talk about poetry and artists? So I think we got a little bit of activism, and we got a little bit about what you do. You want to recite something? I didn't talk to you. I know it's a good answer.
Sure.
You ready? You want to? All right.
I can pull it up. There's one that I had in mind if this was going to come up, so I can pull up my iPad and grab it real quick. But yeah, this is called Girl with Grit, and I wrote it. I was recently featured on the Poetry in the Bar podcast, which is the Eaton Rapids poetry podcast, and they interviewed me, and I sent in like 9 recorded poems, and so this is one that I definitely I love reading, and I was on that too. So if you haven't checked out Poetry in the Bar, it's a great podcast. So
Poetry in the Bars, right?
In the Bar, singular, yeah. So yeah, it was an awesome opportunity and something that I was really excited to be part of. But yeah, so this is entitled Girl with Grit. Let me tell you something about a girl with grit and magic, the duality of pain and power, saint and sinner, and the complexities of being fully alive and fully woman. For it is deep and wide and beautiful and mighty and lovely and entirely exhausting to keep this half-hearted, happy face grin going. She breathes in and out the same way that the streetlight. The emptiness of her heart feels like a silent cathedral. The acoustics are just right, and God is still in motion. Still in motion is fully here, fully present in times of need. Every part of her is art. From the tips of her toes to the top of her head, she is a miracle and a masterpiece. The way she is woven, the patterns of her freckles all come together in their unique and beautiful constellation. I wonder what story her neurons would choose if they could speak. Would they whisper a long-held truth, or boast about a time when she was stronger than even she thought she was? Would they remind us that she adapted and remained all at once? If I could point out one of my favorite things about you, Judy, is how you are ever changing. From sunrise to sunset, from shadows to raintops, ever changing, but always remembering there is value in the roots in the beginning. After all, there were roots before branches, a melody before a song, and a moment before it was a memory. And in this moment, I feel the sun on my skin and the wind in my hair, and I remind myself that the divine feminine is inside of me, here, now. I breathe in what could be my last breath, trusting in the prayer that is breathing. I choose to feel light in me, and I pause and hold space for the wonderful moment that I suddenly realize that I am worthy of all the adoration I give to others. I am a cathedral. I am light, love, and happiness. There is no pursuit, only what is. She's been inside me this whole time. There is no turning back to who I never was. This one is for the history books, folks. A day where I woke up and walked out. Falling in love with yourself is a daily, hourly, minute-by-minute lesson. But I'm a willing student, bowing in the keys of the divine. I am not God, but she is in me. I radically accept that I am capable of singing to the choir. The hallelujahs are more radiant and real than ever before. The amens are more holy. The self-hate filled and mood long gone. My inner critic and frankly reasonable voice says this is going to be difficult. And I reply, I think
There's not a lot of us, but I'm clapping.
it's fun.
So, who inspires you as a poet? Is there another poet that you look at, whether it's a classical or modern or
There's
a
so
rapper?
many. There's so many. I forget the name of the poet laureate who spoke at the inauguration. I think her last name is Gorman. Amanda Gorman, maybe?
Yes,
I know. I'm like,
I know. I'm kicking myself right now for
yeah.
not. I'm so horrible with names.
I know I am too. I want to look that up real quick to make sure that I got that right. But yeah, she. Oh my god.
Amanda Gorman. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. her poem at the inauguration was just so powerful and amazing and beautiful, and just see that like Black excellence and joy coming from. I don't know if you know this, but she actually has like a speech issue, like a speech.
Yes.
And just to see her up there with her confidence and like, it's almost like she was up there preaching. I mean, she certainly was speaking truth, you know? And then there is this activist artist also, like, he has his hands in like so many different things, but his name is Propaganda. And I actually got to perform, the Poetry Room had him for this month's feature over Zoom, and so I got to perform not with him, but at the same event that he was at. And his oh my gosh, his stuff is amazing. And so yeah, I'd say Propaganda. And then as a writer, honestly, something that's like not I would say Death Cab for Cutie, like the music, the writer Ben Gibbard is a huge one for me. And then also, honestly, Hamilton. The way that they like added Hamilton changed my life in a lot of ways.
If you have grandkids, you've watched that like 800 times, so I've got it pretty much memorized. But I did like Hamilton.
Yeah.
It's and Propaganda, not to be confused with Propagandy.
Yes, no.
Another shout out to our America 20.
Yeah, Propaganda's got to go. See the door, Mr. Shar. Like, you gotta go.
So when you say you're an artist, is that painting? Is that the poetry? Is it what's your art like?
Yeah, so I should have had some stuff stacked next to me.
That's all right.
I am a painter. Most of my work is either digital or so I do like abstract designs. And honestly, the stuff that I love the most is actually with Sharpies and markers. So I love doing like intricate designs. Actually, I have rheumatoid arthritis, and so part of like art for me is kind of complicated because I have to take lots of breaks and stuff. And I've never really learned how to draw or like draw things that are exact or whatever. So a lot of my art is like a lot of just abstract designs and squiggles and all that stuff. So and you can check that out. I have a Redbubble shop we can drop the link for, and also a Society 6 shop, which basically those websites are, you put your design on products, the products they have available, and then you can just buy them from the website.
So did you put those links in your original, like, what do I want to say?
Did I email to you?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I did, but I can pull them up now if you, or I can.
Yeah, let's throw them out there to make sure we get those out. And do you mind if I talk to you while you're looking for those or grabbing those?
Absolutely. Yep. Keep going. It's okay.
So when digital art and NFTs, you know what they are? You want to get in?
I feel like I recognize the acronym, but I'm not sure.
It stands for non-fungible tokens, and it's part of a movement in the crypto space.
Yeah.
We should talk. Everyone should be thinking about NFTs right now because it's going to be a big part of the future financial systems, which is another thing we're trying to disrupt or turn on its head, making people bankable, storing equity in a different way.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like I know that you have Pledgecoin, and then I'm familiar with like I'm vaguely familiar with like Bitcoin and stuff and that kind of thing. And I know there was at one point, wasn't there a platform that basically, I think it's like timeshare or something where you exchange, it's not like actual like currency where you exchange like your work for goods and services. Does that make sense? I forget. It's like time banking. Is that what that is?
Well, their time banking is that, and Fledgecoin is just basically time banking with crypto tied to it. So we don't have to, we've got software to keep track of the ledger, and the ledger can't be falsified. So, yeah, we'll be talking more about that because I would like you to sign up so I can give you Fledgecoin for being on the show.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'm fully down. Okay, here are the links.
All right, so you got them over there. I will get them shared out. What would you say your mission is?
Oh man, that's a big question. What is my mission? My mission is in life. And it's funny, I'm not sure. Are you familiar with the Enneagram?
What is it?
It's the Enneagram.
I don't know. I don't think so.
So the Enneagram is like, it's basically a personality test where the questions are really hard. Like it's basically like you have two questions. I think one of them is like, would you rather be like loved or respected? And obviously you want both of those things, but you have to choose one. And so my Enneagram number is a 2, and that is the helper. And it means that my core motivation is to love. That's everything where I come from. So I would say that like keeping that as a part of my core motivation and part of my mission would just be that like I want the world to people to have access to and for things to be as inclusive and accessible as possible. And I want activism to become as accessible as possible. I want people to have their voices raised, and I want there are so many things in life that like are stupid and don't make any sense. Like, for example, like our healthcare system works for no one. And I want people to like have a voice in that and to like make sustainable change in creative ways. Like I want people at protest to have like amazing signs that like have beautiful art in there to catch attention. Or like, I mean, I want like the revolution or whatever you would say, like I want that to be as accessible and inclusive as possible. Because every person has a story and that story has worth. And so I think there's a lot of perspective we just don't hear from. And I'm intrigued by that.
You're making me intrigued by it too. I mean, I'm with you. I'll just say that. What's something you do every damn day to push that mission forward?
So every day, I am reading constantly. Actually, I would say I'm absorbing constantly. So whether that's listening to a podcast, watching a documentary, reading an article, a book, what have you, I'm like a sponge. Like I'm constantly absorbing. And I would say, although I'm not in like traditional school right now or college or whatnot, like I have the privilege of being able to like not have to work right now. So I am like absorbing as much information as possible. And because of that, I'm also sharing that information on my Facebook page with friends, with family, and just saying like, hey, what do you think about this? Or like, what does this bring up for you? Or, like, honestly, the thing that I've been learning the most from has been TikTok. TikTok has so many good like life hacks and things like that, or different things like, I have ADHD, and so I'm learning a bunch of like ways to like organize things, or different like one of my favorite TikTok accounts is about biblical history and about badass women from the Old Testament, like things that I would have never learned about. So I'm not just scrolling, I'm taking notes and stuff. So yeah.
I'm just trying to learn how to dance with TikTok so far. I'm still in the early stages of it.
Mm-hmm.
So we daisy chain our shows together. And yesterday on the show, we had our great friend Rex, and he has a question for you. Mm-hmm. And his question is, what's your morning routine?
Yeah, so I would say, that varies so much. So I don't know if I have a routine as much, but I would say part of my every morning is, so I have, I deal with severe chronic pain. And so in the morning, I kind of have to make a determination like, okay, can I keep my commitments? What can I do throughout the day that will make this a bit more easier? Or do I have to give myself some self compassion and just like hang out in bed? Um,
Mm.
so I think as part of my morning, I'm constantly assessing what I'm able to do and not able to do. And because of that, I have a list of like positive affirmations that I go through and different like therapeutic techniques that I do to make my life manageable, but also make so that every day I am loving myself to the fullest extent as possible. So I would say, yeah, first thing in the morning, I'm just kind of like waking up and determining that. And that's more of a, I would say that's more of a focus for me than like the average, like able-bodied person. I mean, I won't say average, but for an able-bodied person, that might not be a concern that you have right away. But for me, um, I would say that the first 30 minutes of my morning is trying to figure out, okay, what can I do today?
So, as you were saying that, I think back to a few days ago, you sent me an email. Hey, if there's something I can do to prepare. And I'm like, oh, don't worry about it. You're going to be great. But
Mm-hmm.
maybe that was not sensitive, or maybe I could do a better job because if you do that every morning to even
Mm-hmm.
know if you can finish out your day, is there something I could have done better that could have supported you better with coming here?
So first of all, I love that question. It makes me so happy that you're wanting to ask about that. Um, I don't know um, if that necessarily is a bad response. I guess maybe an alternate response would be uh, like I've got your back, or like I support you regardless, or and a way of showing like I'm trying to think about this because that's such an important and good question that you're asking that I want to have a good response because I feel like a lot of people I feel like our words are really powerful. I mean, obviously I believe that, but like, yeah, I guess maybe instead of saying that, which that's not a wrong response, but maybe an alternate you could just say is like, regardless, I've got your back, or regardless, I'll make sure that this is as smooth for you as possible.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Should we have prepped more like a couple days ago, or because I like to keep it raw. I want to keep it authentic, but maybe
Yeah,
I'm being insensitive to something. Help me find a blind spot. I love finding blind spots on the air because we all have them.
yeah.
Don't think you don't.
I feel like in this particular case we wouldn't need to, but maybe in the future for someone else,
Yeah.
asking like, what accommodations do you need, like, or like, what can I do to make this process easier for you? And then having a list of like go to like things that we could do to make it easier for someone. Like, could I keep the background noise like quieter, or do you need to make sure that we have maybe a little bit longer time to prep, or are there certain things that you would need to make this process um, as comfortable and accessible for you as possible?
All
So
right.
that might be something to consider in the future for someone else. And I would say that even if that person doesn't disclose they have a disability, you never know. So it might be good to ask for everyone.
I love it. Not in the future. Well, the future is tomorrow, but
Yeah,
I like to do things now. So if we can make it happen, we're going to change it immediately. So
absolutely. Yeah,
thank you for that.
yeah.
Um, Tomorrow on the show, I have Chelsea. I don't know Chelsea well. She has a company, an organization called Barbells and Sage. Not
Hmm.
even quite sure. I don't research a lot because
Yeah.
I want to learn it all. Um, what would you like to ask Chelsea? What would you like me to ask her on your behalf?
So we talked about this, but I in the pre-interview or whatnot. But the question I love asking people is, what gives you hope? What's
And
the one thing, or overall, like what is giving you hope, especially these days?
I love this question.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I it might be one of my favorite questions, not better or worse or anything like that, but one of my favorite questions. And part of it is because I say I've got a phrase that's basically stuck in my head. Like I say it all the time. And that phrase is sounds morbid at first, but I'll talk about that.
Mhm.
Hope is the last to die. If you have hope, you have everything to me. You have a chance, you have a future, you have everything with hope. But when you lose hope, then I don't even know. I don't know what it's like to not have hope, actually. I'm so full of hope all of the time that I don't know. Maybe that's a flaw or something, but hope is so important. What
Yeah.
gives you what gives you hope?
Um, what gives me hope is the resilience of people who shouldn't have to be resilient. Like the people who are stronger than they should have had to be. The people who have gone through adversity and have come out with like a heart that has biceps. You know what I mean? Like people who are like have these crazy amazing stories, and you're like, wait, like how are you still alive? Like how does that work? You know? And like when I think about that specific thing I think about like indigenous communities who still have their traditions, you know, and somehow they're still you know alive and surviving. You know, or I think about the Black community who has huge, you know, long history of oppression and like are still keeping their, you know, traditions and are still thriving in their community, you know, communities who have been oppressed and marginalized the entire history of our country. It's like you still have your stories, your traditions. Like I want to know how you did that. Like I want to know how you have hope through all the adversity that you've been through. So
It's going to be an amazing question. It's actually might be a question I ask everybody from now on,
oh sweet, that's
or at
great.
least for the next 174 shows.
Yeah.
I added another question to recently, like what I'm just talking about with the hope one. What is happiness to you, and are you happy?
Oh boy. I would say I would say that I have joy. Like happiness to me is joy. It's like a longer term thing for me. As far as like temporary happiness, as far as today, yeah, I'm happy. Like, you know, but I'm someone who's much more focused on joy and like having sustainable, you know, what is living a life where you are going through adversity and difficult things, like waking up in the morning and like with my arthritis, some days I know like I'm not going to be really able to use my hands for many things, or I might have to use my cane to like get to the bathroom or something, you know, but like what in that, like where can I find joy in like that moment? Because frankly, like when I wake up and I'm in a lot of pain or throughout the day, I'm not happy. I'm not having it. You know, I'm a human, you know, but there's ways that I can seek, like one of my favorite phrases is like seek the joy. Like where are ways that I can do that isn't temporary? So that's where my mindset is.
I spoke at a grand opening about 15 months ago, right before COVID kind of hit, and um, I used joy as a spark for hope.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see it that way?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I feel like and I also, going back to your question about like, I don't know what it's like to lose hope. I do. I have been in the depths of depression and have made it out somehow. And I do believe that joy leads to hope. And I think that they kind of go back and forth, because if I have hope, I have to have joy to get there. You know what I mean? Like
Oh yeah.
I don't see them as separate in any way.
So joy is almost a fuel for the hope.
Absolutely.
I don't know, journey.
Because hope can be kind of radical in some cases. You know, having hope or having like empathy is like seen as radical these days. And I think that's a thing worth being radical about.
I think when you said radical, Viktor Kafka popped in my head with Man's Search for Meaning, and being in a concentration camp and still having hope and still finding happiness. Not maybe like you and I might know happiness, but still finding that and having that.
Yeah, absolutely. And also when I think about that, I think about going back to religion and faith. Faith is, in my opinion, is not fact finding. It is meaning making and pattern seeking. It's about connecting what in your life you hold to be truth and also hold to be joy. Because I don't think, in order for me to hold on to some semblance of faith, existing with like American evangelicalism and purity culture existing, I have to have some hope that like Christianity is going to survive. And if I didn't have that, I would not have joy in my life, I feel like, for my background, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that's not a judgment of like anyone else. It's just like my truth. But in order to like have some, like any faith at this point in Christianity, you have to have hope, because right now that's very difficult.
Yeah. So what else? Is there anything we forgot to talk about? Anything you really want to get out there?
I would just say, if you are curious about how to be an activist in Lansing, go to get on the city council Zooms. Like I know that a lot of times there are like super boring, and the beginning is like, okay, we're going through municipal like figuring out like land codes and just different things that you're like, oh my gosh. But like getting to public comment and hearing people's truth is so powerful. So I would encourage, if you are trying to get into activism, that's a really good start. Even if you don't make public comment, just understand the landscape of how local politics works. So.
And that's tonight.
Yep,
right?
That's
7.
I think, yeah.
I'm trying to find the link and the time and all that. We'll figure that out.
And then also America 20 to Life. They go live on Facebook on most Wednesdays and Fridays at 8:00. Just understanding, like, if you are for like defund the police or like major institutional changes, in my opinion, you have to understand how they're implemented locally, and that's how we're going to make sustainable changes. It's bit by bit,
Yeah. And even if you're not sure where you stand, at least come listen to this viewpoint, because the more viewpoints you have, the more informed you are, the better your decisions can be, whether it comes from vaccine or defund the police or how you're going to vote or how to become more accessible, which is something important to us.
Yeah.
So take us out with something.
Yeah, so the phrase that I like to use is like thanks for having me on, and like stay safe and all those good things.
That's what you're taking us out with?
I don't that's what I guess I thought it would take us out. Like,
yeah, I like it.
Thanks. Stay safe and all those good things, like keep investing in you. Like, learn. Like, do not be afraid of things that you do not understand. Like, it's okay to like admit that you're ignorant about something, as long as you are like, I want to learn, I want to know. Like, the level, like the playing field as far as like public education is so it's more even than it ever has been because of YouTube. Like, and also, like I said, I acknowledge that like I have a lot of privileges, including time right now, that I have the ability to go through things. But man, like, it's so fun learning about stuff that I didn't understand. Like, so I would just encourage you, if you have time, just like listen to a podcast about something you don't understand or a subject that you're interested in. Just let that be, what is your catalyst.
I was going to loop back around and say, I love the way you think. I love the way you're pushing your knowledge forward. You're trying to spread it, whether it's poetry, art, or your activism. And I want to thank you for being a guest on the show today. Because what you said when you said take us out was basically what I was going to say back at you. So that's why it surprised me. I was like, that's what you want to say? That's what I
didn't know you meant by take us out. So I was like, cool.
It's just deuces. See y'all tomorrow at 2.
Well, that's the phrase that I like to say if like I'm getting coffee or like if I'm interacting with someone. I always just like to say like stay safe and all those good things, because that's what we all need right now is all the good things and staying safe, you know. So
there you go. Stay safe and all those good things, and we'll see you tomorrow at 2 p.m. for another episode of Every Damn Day, and we will see you later. Stick with me for a second, Kelsey, and say goodbye to the crowd. Bye-bye.